당연히 저게 아주 랑 아니 저기 랑라 차인데 랑이 된다려야 근데 지금 저 집에 삼로디다 저기 라신이가려야 농화 중에 유조의 뒤에서 다디 저기 이게 동화 중에 다 기엔되는 중국어서 된 디시쇼게도 시간도 두시 심주시 시작하래 제사다 디 삼로된 것도 방고를 매봐주고 그래서 지산 디네자 디 그런 것도 디시쇼게다 디 라지징의 삼로 나베네 이니 디에는 예복고 이라신이가 중요하게 유조를 자와 딜레트 용거래서 니 요나데 배선로 디네 레슨한테 어쇼기 유슈베레.
Good afternoon. This morning, we spoke about how striving to achieve one's own interest is what leads to the accumulation of causes for problems for oneself as well as for others. So this needs to be reflected on deeply so that one comes to the clear recognition, I need to abandon this way of thinking, I need to abandon this self-interest. And this comes about through recognizing the fault of grasping at oneself as dear, the self-cherishing mind, through recognizing it is the primary cause that for the creation of suffering for ourselves and as well as for others. So then how to abandon striving to fulfill one's own self-interest is to cultivate the minds of love and compassion. The minds of love and compassion are the primary causes that lead to the cultivation of bodhicitta. And when bodhicitta has arisen, then these 6 practices that you've heard already, those of generosity, ethics, patience, enthusiastic perseverance, concentration, and wisdom, when these now are conjoined with bodhicitta, they have the strength to lead to the accumulation of causes that lead to the attainment of Buddhahood. And this then is the great benefit of striving to and overcoming our attitude of self-interest, and rather developing the opposite way, where we strive for the benefit of others, or we hold others as dear, which comes about through the cultivation of love and compassion. So in this way, we can see how self-interest is striving for one's own interests alone is the doorway through which all suffering comes. But when one develops a genuine wish to be of benefit to others, in other words, when one is guided by love and compassion, that is the doorway by which all happiness comes, because that is the doorway through which bodhicitta is developed and Buddhahood is attained.
랑이 탈바토고도 삼로와 다 디리마 삼바체 지자도 동화 되니게 동화들 타고도 동화대 강화도 딜레 타고도 삼다이도 지자다 되어서 랑세디 랑다 현세디 지과레스 현심자 함정 아랑기 동화디 강화 통고래 지자 강화딜레 타고도 섬고래 지자 티나시 현심자 탐지 되니게 강화 딜레 타고 찍부찍이하라 하나다 지과레스 지자다 현심자 해주 콜 동화딜레 타고 심자 탐지레 디기 주고 거래스 지자 랑 대화 되바나 심자 대화 되고 그래 랑 동화 미되바 심자 동화 미되바레스 원당 모두 신 삼당 고래지
So how to meditate then on love and compassion, how to cultivate these minds within. So we are in the third line of this verse, and you would have seen that these are, this represents three practices, one building on the other, which differentiate primarily in terms of motivation, where one motivation is built upon the other, hence the need to train in this way. So to meditate on love and compassion, the meaning here, or the method in the third line, comes about independence on one's successful training of the two previous steps. So when one comes to meditate on love and compassion, one first meditates on, as we've presented yesterday, the suffering, how the three realms of samsara are pervaded by suffering. So here you would have already meditated well on this. So you're just reminding yourself of that. You don't need to meditate on all the various types of suffering because that has already been done successfully. But you remind yourself to a small degree. And when, up to this point, when one has meditated on the sufferings of cyclic existence, one then develops definite emergence, the determined attitude to emerge from suffering and attain one's own liberation. Here at this point, though, one parts or adds on, expands one's motivation. Because when one gives rise to this wish, I don't want to suffer anymore. I want out. I want to gain my freedom from samsara. Now we add something extra on. And this is the very clear recognition that my wish to be free of suffering is not something unique to me. It's not unique to my fellow Buddhists. This is shared by all beings, whether human or non-human. No one wants to suffer. Everyone, every single being wants to abide in lasting happiness. No one wants to suffer. So we recognize that at this fundamental level, we are all the same. We all want to be happy. We don't want to experience any problems, suffering, or difficulty. That there is, at this fundamental level, no valid basis to divide beings, to differentiate or distinguish between beings. One cannot say, my happiness is therefore more important than that person's, or those people. There is no valid basis to divide. We are all the same in wanting to be happy.
미치그라지 nga 세대 nga 세대 미치그라지 그래서 현 세대 뭐세 타예버 지리되어서 되는 현 미자 근데 된로다 되네게 부신다 아주 통화다 마통화 되서 현 세대 타예버 지리서 제자다 디현 대화당 근데 대화 주의에 대당 나랑의 대화 주의 진짜 빼다 사람이 개워셔서 봐도 자신불 제자다 나랑의 대화 충충의 직직 대화 충충이 된다라야 현심제 담직이 디기 팔로에 단때바 노출 심보레시스 대상 당 나랑이 돈나섬도 충충레시스 내가 지그라지로 와서 현세제 타예바래 제자다 일레데 현심제 타예베 돈다라야 타예바들 디기 주고고도 현심제 타예베 대지래 동아데 세고고도 선배게다 되네게 삼당 거래지래.
When one comes to that conclusion from meditating on the suffering of the three realms, giving rise to that determination that I want to gain liberation from suffering, then one draws one's attention to others, recognizing this wish that I've now generated, again, based on my meditation, to gain freedom from suffering. every other being has that same wish. They may not have cultivated, they may not have gone through this meditation process, but all of them would love to be freed of samsara. All of them would want to be liberated. So that's how one expands one's mind, encompassing all beings. And here, as one expands one's mind, it's very clear that I, as the meditator here, am one being. Others are innumerable in number. We can call to mind, because we've been meditating on the suffering of the three realms, on the incredible number of beings that pervade the three realms. The huge number of humans, the far greater number of animals, as well as all the unseen beings. There are so many. And all of them share the same wish to be liberated from samsara. They may well not even have any conception of what samsara is, but no one wants to suffer. All want to abide in lasting happiness, the lasting happiness of liberation from samsara. And as that is the case, how can it be appropriate that I strive for only my own self-interest? How can I place myself ahead of so many, saying that I'm going for my liberation first and foremost? How can that be appropriate? How can I ignore their needs?
소수기 디기로 집에는 가지고 체디점이 서베다이나 소수기 사야동야 도로로시네 샹라데는 용고레스 제자당 가지고 샹라데 디 용고로데 샹라데네 샹기 레가제데네 샹라데네 사야동야도 도로다 찾아 샹라데는 용고레스 제자 샹라데는 고레스 가지고 샹라데는 고레스 이 맞아 소수기 류디에나 샹라데는 용고레스 베네랑 랑기 류디에 파바도 바바님 밤에 파메기 아니 파기에 소경제 되는 제발에 되는 용어를 지상 알아야 현세에 배마스 진천보다 개진치 모래샤스 제자다 되네 이 맞아 소수기 롭종으로 신예기 시윤도 집이네 샹라 되는 용고를 샹기 되는 납제 샹기마 된 납제 샹라 되는 용고를 난 디나신 당한주기 지게 개와치몽 어디로 거봐서나 탈바 탐지기 먹고 봐 산조고 봐야서 샹라 되는 용고를 샹 아니 샹기 샹라 되네 기비신의 데레티는 취슈 롭종제 건주수 랍 딜랍죠 롭종제 데네 소소라나게 샹리아 잠니주 패션 공부를 때네 안 소소기 개와된 거 공대 배주고 그래서 제사다 현세의 나라를 빼면서 기회치 뭐 짜치 뭐 휴지레스 제사 나라를 기회치보다 짜치 뭐 판도치 뭐 지고직이야 당연히 코슬레 판도치 마두벤다 나벤 벤지게 너르시 뭐 휴차고 그래서 누스는 삼당고 레제 지사 샹리아 고 판도 제고의 신 디기주의 진동아 세고도 선비 삼다도 당보 샹데상래 진천보다 깨진천보 배 짜천보 개천보 임바 삼다도 샹리아 판도 주의 삼로디 아니 뉴바디 슈체고 그래서 제가 되네자 도시는 삼당고 레제래 안데디 디시 다지네시다
So here, in the meditation, one has used one's prior extensive experience on meditating on the sufferings of samsara giving rise to definite emergence, and then expanding this understanding to all beings, recognizing all beings without exception also want to gain lasting happiness of liberation from samsara. Then, and recognizing that I'm only one and they are countless in number. Now, we need to take this further, and not so that we don't get trapped in a mere intellectual recognition, but we develop a recognition of our interconnection with others, so as we can shift from our current state of the self-cherishing mind dominating to develop an other-cherishing mind where we hold others as dear. So to do this, we need to hold others tenderly, and to develop this warm, tender attitude towards all others, we need to recognize the kindness they have shown us, and the benefits they bring into our life. Because we naturally think of ourselves as independent, but the truth is we are deeply entwined with others. It's not merely a relationship of interdependency, but there's a deep entwined relationship with others. We can think of the food we eat, the clothing we wear, the accommodation we live in. This came about independence on the kindness of others. So the Tibetan word is kindness. The meaning in English is often better as benefits, because the people are going about their job, not necessarily thinking of us, but we receive benefit from their labor. In this way, we have clothes to wear, we have food to eat, a home in which to live. And then there are the people who not merely grow the food, who merely make the clothes, but that whole link of people in that entire chain that's led us to be able to have these things. And this very body that is wearing clothes and eating food and housed, this body has come about independence on others. Here, most obviously, we think of our parents, but not just in terms of conception and birth, but the care they showed us throughout our young years, this process of growing up, as well as the care from so many others to ensure that this vulnerable little child was able to survive through childhood into adulthood. We were entirely dependent on others. And the fact that we're not mute and stupid in both senses is also dependent on the kindness of others, through our parents taking the time to speak to us, to repeat words again and again. We learned how to speak. Then, not only did we learn from our parents, but our educators too. So that to speak, to read and write, all this education from school, we gained from others. And then, in terms of our good qualities, many of these we've carried into this life in terms of karmic imprints that we gained, independence on others in lives previous to this, but also in this life, from our parents, from our society, from our spiritual teachers, we learned good qualities. All of this, too, has come about independence on others. So this step of the meditation, where we develop a close tenderness and affection towards others, comes about through recognizing that the benefit we've received, the kindness that we've received, a deep web of interdependency with countless others.
Bendigo 도시는 삼다. 데네 삼다의 차이절이야. 안나 당도 가슴다는. 데네 자당이 semjen 탐제레 데히 주긴 semjen 탐제 대화의 템퍼쇼 선비게다 잠바지 고미야지 시고래. semjen 탐제 대화의 템퍼쇼 semjen 대화의 템퍼쇼 집에데 도시는 잠바 고미야들이.
Meditating well in this way, our heart will open towards others. And naturally, the wish will come, may others be happy. These beings who show me such kindness, may they achieve happiness. In particular here, it's the happiness, the lasting, stable happiness, not mere transitory happiness, lasting, stable happiness. May all beings abide in joy, in happiness.
데니게 삼단에 semjen 탐제 대화의 템퍼쇼 선비게 대화되다 나중에 체디점이 대화면 대화 인기 대화되게 토벌쇼 선비게 데니게 samdayida jambasi or jamba kumbasi or that. Di that ngi that yunje menga that chine shi da ngi said chine le yuwa. Chisa that dambo jamba khoro da. Chisa denigi jumse shenle tembi ke samdaji rang le phandwa jima samdaji dene shen semje demje dewa de temple shows dewa ge chodo gyuba dewa chod ge dingi dewa de temple show sembe dengo do temple show sebe samdi da jamba kumbasi or jam.
So this is how one generates a mind of love. So it's good to have this very clear, because the word in the Dharma has a specific meaning quite separate from general use in society. It's a feeling of, it comes from a feeling of closeness, of tenderness towards all beings without discrimination. And it's a wish, the mind of love is a wish for others to abide in lasting, stable happiness of liberation.
Mm-hmm. Adi dije la nyingje kom saidi le da nyingje saidi 다 되니게 삼다네 다 심전에 대화도 된바들에 심전에 동화다 맞아버네 대화 대화입니다 와서 지나다 심전 동화나서 예바데 심전 탐지 동화 타다단 자고도 지사 심전 동화단 자고쇼 선배게다 삼로디 되니게 삼다데 니지고 봐서데
The meditation on love has a companion mind, that of compassion. Because wanting others to abide in lasting, stable happiness requires that they are also completely free from all problems, suffering, and difficulty. And this is the meaning of the mind of compassion in Buddhism. Compassion is the wish for others to be freed of all forms of suffering. There's forms of suffering one meditated in detail on previously. May all beings, without exception, be freed of all these forms of suffering.
제가 되니게 지나 장주심 님len 체들이야 슝나라 송여도 윤제명아 든유고네 아니 냠술레나 다시 냠지고네 도시 냠술레나 림바 송고르데 이나가도 되니 차상시에게 뒤서고라 요말에 이던거마 되니 장이디 도시는 돌려주고래.
And if you now or later wonder, hang on, this teaching is not quite the same as I've received in the past, because when one hears more extensive presentation on how to cultivate bodhicitta, one will hear one of two methods, or perhaps both: the 6 cause and 1 effect method, and or equalizing and exchanging self with others. But because our time is limited, I'm abbreviating them. So if there are some steps that are being skipped over.
donda jamnije sede 제가 되니게 되지 현심제 탐제 대화 뒤바래 동아 미디어바래 제가 라다라다 지바래 현세의 랑라 예침보래 제가다 랑리에 판도치 뭐 자침부 시우도 제가다 랑세 지 현심제 타예바래 섬자 두섬다데 딩이 현심제 탐제 대화데 템버쇼 선배게 되니게 섬다데 잠바고 맞지 근데 현심제 탐제 동아다 자와다 제바 자와쇼 선배 삼고 스타일이 니지고 봐서 잠니제 세야데 두스차고래.
So this is then how to generate the actual minds of love and compassion. One reflects on suffering, giving rise to a wish to be freed of suffering, in other words, gain liberation from samsara, then give rise to that recognition. No one wants to suffer. At this fundamental level, everyone wants to be liberated from samsara. Everyone wants to abide in lasting happiness. And then one meditates on love and compassion. With love being the mind, may all beings abide in lasting happiness. May they abide in a happiness that never fades or wanes. And may all beings gain complete freedom from suffering, so they never experience any problems again. And these are the minds of love and compassion.
되니기다 디젤 칼리그레스네 지다다 신심전 탐제 대화단 자고도 심제 동화단 자와쇼 잠바점이 지고 말 되는사다 셈쇼를 마소나 소소기 지고 전에 되니 대화의 대고 동화 자고도 선비게 고묘도 삼다도 고묘도 되니게 셈쇼를 마소나 파라진데 디가 좀 것은 되니 셈전 대화의 덴바데 네 지기 셈전 동화의 자와단 네 지기 선비게 두시네 삼로지 데디 공고거래시 네 지기 심지 대화데 덴바데 녜지 심지 탐주 동화데 녜시기 세베 난 하산 남다 되니 인도 비켜버시 이 하산 남다시 되지래.
One meditates in this way, as with all the steps throughout all the meditations, repeatedly over a sustained period. And eventually, with love and compassion arising in a powerful way, in a way that really opens one's heart to others, a lack of contentment with merely wanting others to attain liberation from samsara will arise. This wish is very sincere. One feels a close and tender connection with all, and really, from the depths of one's heart, wants others to gain freedom from suffering and abide in lasting happiness. But merely wishing is insufficient. Here, the mind grows in strength to the point where it is deeply courageous, where a further mind called wholehearted resolve arises, where one takes responsibility for the state of others. One takes it as one's own personal responsibility that each being attains a state freed of suffering and abides in lasting happiness. One is now no longer passively wishing this to come about, but takes this as one's own responsibility. From how I've described this meditation, if you imagine yourself in this position now, where you've given rise to this determined attitude that has arisen with a deep strength of mind to take responsibility for the welfare of others, to take responsibility to ensure they all attain their own liberation from suffering and abide in lasting happiness. With such a mind, very naturally, one will hold others as dear. The achievement of their benefits will dominate one's mind. Any thought of one's own self-interest will be completely obliterated. And one will also, with the strength of mind, have the deep determination, I know I will experience hardships and challenges, but that's not a problem. Compared to the goal of benefiting all beings, there is no hardship that will overwhelm me. So here, one holds others as dear and completely abandons the self-cherishing mind.
디기 탐제 될라 되는 용구리 연대 풍선 소바는 제 될라 되는 용구리 해서 아주 대시 저게 마 재생구배 시랑 재생로데 아주 강아체 규조리 현심전 마교 심전 탐지 디기 주에 삼다디 현시로디 네 연대 풍선 소바 중 유리 될라 용구리 시 루순슈라 제자디 디레서 제자디 나시 데니 벤벤 받는 다와다 베기 우마주바나라 지쇼게 시바나 찍디나 年天上界的那么同行界，上界讲学生把连重新，年些什么的，你说没老大，讲学什么的，也是那么一句说的，然后就你看这要的，但是学个这些年都要的，他们的来的，我们去过呢，那都这个的，不能年天上界的那么同行界，现在年天现在年天他们学的，经是上界经来的上界的，现在上界的你上界给他们年界的，讲就是可是年天给他们年界些，这就没只不托管吃上，那个托把上月今年的了，今年的给定这个那么叫确送确的年，一确上过嘛，就过嘛结巴了，定呢。 年对这就没这个托呀，那让也这就没这个托呀，用过的是，就啥的年对咱们年来接，让也咱们年来接，的那年对这就没这个托呀，让也这就没这个托呀，这个就是，对，土巴上有专门的确送确的年，他来的确上过嘛的是用完这年对上一个，那咱们人把它定义态度，那特别过托呀的，土巴上有专门的来的用过的是就送过，然后的年对上一的，对，这个来说。 안데 참았는데 대담부 년대 상계진은 통화기에서 리더다 되시고
So the generation of love and compassion that leads to the being guided by the other cherishing mind, this leads to the accumulation of so much merit. There was a verse this morning from the Lama Chöpa stating that the grasping at oneself is the doorway to all suffering, whereas as holding others as dear is the foundation for all that is good. So here, based on what we've heard thus far, that it is this self-cherishing attitude, the self-striving for one's own interest, that leads to all our problems and difficulties. But when this then gets replaced with the other cherishing mind, where we hold others as dear, then the entire paths of the Bodhisattva are open to us. And from that, so much benefit will come to countless beings as well as oneself. Then there's a verse from Chandakirti. So I don't know this one, so I can't repeat it back. I, as a translator, don't know the verse, but the Geshe then explained the first line. So the first line is a praise from a praise to Buddha Shakyamuni for having taught dependence arising, because it is through this presentation of dependence arising that hearers and solitary realizers can come to gain their goal of freedom from cyclic existence, become arhats.
Dan tubasan jumne de an koron ga de chungwa de lamna dine janju semba le dine yong res je janju semba nam je lam nyamne je dine nyamne je tar chin yu de an san yu ko ma to so je sa nin san ji de an janju semba ge janju semba le dine yong re ji yu le de janju sem nyamne je janju semba le dine yong res chungwa res je sa san ji janju semba le ru shi san ye koron ga ne ske ba re la na janju semba nam je an lam nyamne je janju sem 그거는 냠는 제발에 되네 상이 차송을 상이의 자신 발에 중앙을 해서
So the rest of the verse then. So hearers and solitary realizers, through hearing the Buddha's teachings on dependence arising, were able to attain liberation from cyclic existence, to become arhats. So they were able to do this independent on the Buddha's teachings on dependence arising, on interdependency. But why was the Buddha able to teach this? Well, in other words, how did the Buddha Shakyamuni, come about? Each and every Buddha has come about independence on bodhicitta. So the Bodhisattva who went on to arise as Buddha Shakyamuni was only ever a bodhisattva, and then later a Buddha, in dependence on bodhicitta. So therefore, as bodhicitta is the cause of all Buddhas, as well as through Buddhas, the attainment of arhatship, it's bodhicitta that is to be praised first and foremost.
언다네 두바상이 좀데 전주심 양수 전주심 발에 되는 게와네 전주심 바데 간스 쩌바레 총어레라네 전주심 바데 간에 차바레라네 니제셈다 니소메라다 제가 니지심보곰 네네 니지심보곰 발에 되는 전주심 게용 거래 제가 전주심 게에 되는 전주심 바 차고레스 제가다 전주심 바 차야디 니지심보곰 발에 되는 전주심 게네 전주심 바 차고레스 제가 전주심 게 유자와디 니지심보 잠니지 잠바데 니시심바데레스 델라티네 자주심바 차고 레지레 제사다 자주심바 차르도 니곰발레테네 상기고마 도주고 레지레 제 상기고마 토즈도 상기 최송노도 아니 디최년제 퇴삼 공존제네 년되다 랑게게 람 유레게 랑게다 다준비 랑게다 준비 년되다 준비 저 도고 레스 안디마지다 다준비 저 마토바네 당아즈도 상기 좀네 지수타네 개외냠네 제가 개와 아니 개외냠네 제가 노수소바 차상 아니 사기기 취연지 발에 용하자 제가 디 차상 자와도 수수레스 니첨보 자와도 용도 와서 제가 니첨보디 만남 지수 응한테 상이 말씀제 탐제라 용하다 디기 두되게 잠 니제디 아니 연대 폰소바 탐지 주니레 세디 제가 니첨보 공발라데 장쇼 셈게 된 장쇼 셈바차 디냠는 제발데 상기고바토 상기고바토네 상기 취송제 되네게 취냠는 제 바도메 바주네 년대 자주 받아 란제 자주 메주 벌어서 떠야다. 이에는 디메비게 단 자주심베 디네게 냠는지간다 기회 냠는지 빠도메 용하디 자와 섬다나 가월로스 잠니지 되는데 용도 와서다 제사다 잠니지디 연대 탐지 폰수 소비 유 자와 이미 юм체데 디송거다
So to recap this verse and take it a little further, because what is primarily being praised here is great compassion. Because it is through the generation of great compassion that a practitioner becomes a bodhisattva. Because it's from great compassion one will generate bodhicitta. And the moment uncontrived bodhicitta arises, one is counted amongst the bodhisattvas. And it's as a bodhisattva one progresses onwards through the bodhisattva's paths and grounds and eventually becomes a Buddha. And then it's as a Buddha, through one's teachings on dependent arising and so forth, that hearers and solitary realizers go on to realize emptiness and gain complete liberation from samsara, becoming arhats, gaining their freedom, abiding in lasting happiness, completely freed from ever having to suffer again. So therefore we can trace from great compassion the continuity, or from the cause of great compassion, bodhisattvas come, Buddhas come, hearers, solitary realizers, attaining their state as an arhat, all follow. And not only just for these great practitioners, bodhisattvas, arhats, and Buddhas, are their attainments can be traced back to great compassion, but for ordinary people such as ourselves, all the virtue we accumulate has come about in dependence on great compassion, in that it's great compassion that was an indispensable cause that eventually led to Buddha Shakyamuni appearing in our world and teaching the Dharma. So through a great compassion, Buddha Shakyamuni attained his enlightenment, taught the Dharma, and the Dharma has continued to thrive in this world, all because of great compassion.
어떤 인지디 계침보 인바디 도스네 근데 대송거 디나신 다변행아 인지디 장슈세 마기 녀리야 자와 니지데 베마시 마기 녀레 장슈세 마기 녀레 고미야다 니치모 고미야다 베 계침 인지디 계침보시고래 인지 마기나 장슈세 계도 말해지래 이 변에 당보디 계쳐와래지 다 장슈세 계차바이나야 장슈세 계네 파신 중에 냠는 집에 qab래네 니지 거래스 니지 공고래스 니지 메나 셴리아 판도 지금 말이지 그래서 소소히 뢰뢰 기부를 냠내지도 셴리아 판도 지금 말 세상 발기냐고 소이네 장주스 니지디 계침버려야지 다 장주스 냠내 상계 고방 톱차나야 상계를 니지 침부 거래스 니지 메나 다 소소히 강아 차상 세사다 다 뢰뢰지네 셴기 단다 계침부 지금 말이지 세상 상계 고방 톱차나야 니지 침부 거래스 세상 니지 침부디 당보 토마르 계쳐와 계침부래서 전주세 마기 녀래야 기자 치셔디 계치셔 인지 셴버래야 인지 토마르 계쳐와 단 전주세 귤레 계산에 전주세 람 냠레 집에 내가서는 인지 계쳐 바도 계쳐와 얘네 타르 상교고 톱차나야 인지 셴버디 빼 마세 계침부시고래서 지다 토마르 계쳐와 토다 발숨도 계쳐와래서 도시네 송거 지상한테 별마서는 디솔 취디 먼저 된도 답이도 막 사번 마 답이도 취리 계침을 주면은 누구께도 말해지래. 단 누구께서 야슬레베네 주면은 아니 감르고 그래서 임 감르고 그래서 취리 누구 마지 녀래 사번 답시도 취리 계침벌에 누구께서 야 제부 야 계산에 아니디 에스 취 계침을 주면은 감르고 그래서 단 누구께서 야데 민찬 제부 매도샤 제부로 따사베네 추고 그래서 취계치면 주면은 제보디 야 살원지 두말 감루고 매바자로 그래서 제가 먼저 된대요 갑을 기회가로 취디 당보 계체와 발도 계체와 타마 제로도 수마다 발도다 계치물 디나시다 니지디 장주쌤 마게 녀려야 아니 지금 이제도 계치물 장인지면은 아니 장주쌤 계투고 말 제가 토말 계체와 다 장주쌤 냠len 제비 갑라야 아니 니지면은 야게 야공 공부도 좋고 말에 제가 발도에 계체와래 다 타르 상계고 토브나야 상계들 니지치모메나 아니 셴려 취 비디나 취 송말 셴려 판도 계치모 제투마 대자라 타마이가서 니치모 계셔와래 시드다 제가 오마주바 나라야 언지 데니게 니지치모디 토말 계지와 발도 계지와 타말 계지와 정송을 토다 말씀 계지와
Bodhicitta then has as its primary cause great compassion. So therefore, anyone who aspires to become a bodhisattva has to train in great compassion. It is the indispensable cause for the generation of bodhicitta. But bodhicitta great compassion isn't only required at the beginning stages of the training of the aspirant bodhisattva. It's not that the aspirant bodhisattva then attains uncontrived bodhicitta and then can neglect great compassion. Great compassion is required throughout the grounds and paths, this extensive period in which the bodhisattva trains and accumulates the causes relating to the six perfections to be of benefit to others. Throughout this period, the bodhisattva relies on great compassion. So not just when they're an aspirant bodhisattva, not just when they're a new bodhisattva, but even when they're a greatly experienced bodhisattva, they are dependent on great compassion because it's great compassion that spurs the bodhisattva on to make ever more extensive efforts to be of benefit to others, to cultivate the six perfections. And when the bodhisattva's journey finally comes to an end and the final moment of being a sentient being comes, and they arise as a Buddha, they still require great compassion, because it's great compassion that pushes a Buddha forward to teach the Dharma, to benefit beings in countless ways, not to sit back on their laurels saying, "I've done it," but to be out there in the world benefiting others. So therefore, great compassion is indispensable at the beginning, it's indispensable in the middle, and it's indispensable at the end. And this is also likened to water in terms of the growing of plants or crops. So when one plants a seed, one knows one needs to water it the right amount. Otherwise, it will not sprout. But once it's sprouted, and you can see the plants growing through the soil, it doesn't mean the gardener's job is done. One needs to keep watering the plant so that it can continue to grow. And when the fruit or the flower is blooming, one needs to keep the soil moist, keep the plant moist, so that the fruit or the flower it can bloom fully and be fresh and strong. So in this way, just like water is required at the beginning, the middle, and the end, so too with great compassion. It's required in order for the aspirant bodhisattva to attain their goal and become a bodhisattva. It's required throughout all the trainings of the bodhisattva. There's many lifetimes. And it's required at the end when the bodhisattva arises as a Buddha. for those who aspire to actually practice Tantra, for you, great compassion is equally important. So you've heard then how great compassion is praised by Chandrakirti in the Sutra tradition. It is equally praised in the Tantra tradition. And it's praised for similar reasons. Great compassion is the indispensable cause that leads to the generation of bodhicitta. To actually practice Tantra, one requires bodhicitta. One needs to be a bodhisattva, because the goal of tantric practice is to become a Buddha, for the sake of others. Therefore, without great compassion, bodhicitta cannot be generated. Without bodhicitta, one does not become a bodhisattva and therefore cannot become a Buddha. And again, I quoted a Tantra, and the quotation states, because I don't know it, so it's something like this, that for any Buddha to arise, such as Vajradhara, for them to arise with the omniscient consciousness of a Buddha, bodhicitta is required. And for bodhicitta to be required, the great compassion is required. So therefore, thereby we also see in the presentation of Tantra that great compassion is an indispensable prerequisite at the beginning and at the end, but also in the middle. The 6 perfections are also practiced in Tantra. For them to be suitable to be called perfections, those 6 practices have to be conjoined with bodhicitta. So thus far, you've heard about the 6 practices here called practices. But when conjoined with bodhicitta, they become perfections. Because when ethics, generosity, patience, joyous perseverance, concentration, and wisdom, those 6 practices are conjoined with bodhicitta, so they're in the continuum of a bodhisattva, those practices are called perfections because of being conjoined with bodhicitta. They'll be developed to the perfected state of a perfected being, a Buddha. So therefore, being conjoined with bodhicitta, they are suitable to be called perfections because they'll be developed to the perfected state of a Buddha.
이네 현심전에 대화 대바 동화다 말하는 대화 대표에 대해서 심전에 동화 타다난 자워쇼 자고고도 선비게다 심지 동화다 자워쇼 선비게 삼로디다 디고미야디 먼저 삼로도 삼다에들어 니니지세 니지 콤바세요 진짜 되니자다 이 심전에 동화다 자와데 녜지기 심전에 디기도 두게데 녜지기 심전이 판도데 녜지기 세비게다 심전 탐지 kowe dunga del dresshe ya sanje salnge ko yin sembege ta samlo stang de di samda de la sam nam da so ta di samda de nga juge oda di sam de ge tang ko kong ko re di kong ba ina rang chi lo di pa do ko res do ko re je le.
Here now I've presented many reasons why bodhicitta is so important. So I'll just, to bring it back directly to our context, recap the meditation. So one starts by reflecting on the sufferings that pervade the 3 realms, so as to once again generate definite emergence, the determined attitude to gain freedom from suffering and to abide in lasting happiness. That was the second line in our verse. Then one makes that bridge into the third line, where one recognizes that just like I want to be freed of the sufferings of samsara and abide in the lasting happiness of liberation, so too does every single sentient being. The vast majority of them have no idea about this, but nevertheless, they yearn for it. Deep down inside, like me, none of them want to suffer. They all want to abide in lasting happiness. then one develops from there the mind of love. May all beings abide in lasting happiness. May all beings strive to accumulate the causes that lead to lasting happiness, the happiness that is freed from samsara. May all beings attain such a state. So this is the development of love. And it comes about through the prior development of a tender, close attitude towards others, recognizing our interdependence, recognizing the kindness and the benefit they've brought us in innumerable ways. And not just in this life, but for a lifetime. So you have the sense of closeness, you then develop love towards them. And that is followed by the companion mind of compassion. May all beings be free of suffering. May they abandon the causes that lead to suffering and thereby never experience the results of the result that is suffering. So this is a generation of love and compassion. And one develops this ever again and again to the point where the love and compassion is so strong inside that it leads to one not being content with merely wishing for others to be happy. That feels insufficient, but rather one feels this call to action, to do something about this. And this is the generation of this great strength of mind called wholehearted resolve, or the altruistic attitude of universal responsibility or special intention, where one takes it as my personal responsibility that each and every sentient being gets guided to transform their mind and thereby attain liberation from suffering. This is my personal responsibility. This is the generation of the wholehearted resolve, where very clearly one is putting the needs of others first, their interest before one's own self-interest. This then is the other cherishing mind, or holding others as dear, and it completely obliterates one's striving for one's own self-interest, or the self-cherishing mind.
Tikire Demba Dunga Jawa Ngeche, Simjana Sanji, Sangi Science, Lokuin, Simshur Kyodu. That in it, Naya some Tingala, the Niki, Nuba to Mindusine. That in Ala Nuba Mindus, rather than Shingo Marata, just not Che Simjala Che Shag, Chasading and the Shingo Mar, the Niki, and Simi Che Shava Simjala come down, Meva Tumbica, Ganesha Dia Shing, that I Shing Mindus. That is Shing and the Su Shingores, and Sangi said the Shingores. 제가 상계 코론 교연 탐제된 자와 연대 풍송 초보 인자 다 감당 매버 지다와 신도 하고는 상계레스 제 상계의 최근의 신변의 땡땡신의 상계레스 제가 다시 행기 심지 동안 제다 디 유튜브에 상계선로 고야기 탑람 약쇼의 상계마도 요 말레스 다 상계레시아스 대인장의 다 상계 고만도 마도 탑 민도 선비 신 동안 신 유튜브 신 심지 상계 살이야 그 발라 이 코스를 랍 신고도 디 자와지 두고도 디 취비 누바 다된 알아면도 제자 누바도 술도 쓰는데 상기를도 제자 당의 상기 고만마도는 탐미 선비게 샘슐을 끼에지는 되는 파에 샘지 파에지는 되는 샘지 탐지기도 상기 고가 토가 쇼 선비게 되는게 삼는 끼에도 근데 자주 쓰면 끼에 봤습니다.
Then the next step in the meditation, having generated this genuine determination that that others are suffering and them gaining freedom from that is my responsibility. I will ensure that each person is guided to transform their minds in this similar way to I am doing at the moment. I take it as my responsibility to guide others. So that's where one has come to. But it's also abundantly clear to one who, having meditated for a long time, that how limited one is. I am still suffering in samsara. I myself lack freedom. So if I'm not free, how can I help others? I really do not have the capacity to help others. I can give good guidance based on the guidance I've given, but I cannot guide beings in the very best way suited to each individual. I do not have the capacity to read the karmic background of each being and guide them precisely in the precise manner. But Buddhas can do this. Buddhas can do this. Therefore, I have to become a Buddha for the sake of others. Because it's only as a Buddha that I can be a perfect guide, perfectly guiding each being in accordance with their own unique karmic background. And here one sets one's heart on becoming a Buddha in order to lead all sentient beings to a state freed of suffering. This is the generation of bodhicitta. When bodhicitta arises, it's very clear. Nothing else matters than this. I've taken it as responsibility to lead all beings to a state freed of suffering. And to do so, that's the one cause. And to do so, I must become a Buddha, the second. That then comes to dominate one's life. This is the mind of bodhicitta.
Denigida Janshu Denisim Jatamjun Sanjuko Torsho, Sembe Samlo de Yane, Yando Yane, Dushin Gomche, Yanganskilla, Juma Maimba Gedina, Chikanga Shushi Gate by Kivaina, the Janshu Semba, Janjula Janshu Sem Gavare, and the Denigi gave a Gasa did that Janshu Semba and Chagor, Janshu Semba Chagor, Chagor.
Every single step of the meditation, from when we first met on Friday to today, needs to be engaged in or meditated on repeatedly over a sustained period. So we integrate that very way of thinking into ourselves. And so too here, when one first gives rise to bodhicitta, as transformative as it is, it will fade. So therefore one keeps meditating in this way, generating bodhicitta again and again and again. And every time one generates genuine bodhicitta, one has generated bodhicitta. But it's only when one's familiarity is such that one doesn't need to manufacture or intentionally generate bodhicitta. It's spontaneously always there. It's at that moment one's bodhicitta is uncontrived, doesn't wane. It's always present. This, when one now has generated uncontrived bodhicitta for the first time, just not contrived, it spontaneously arises and abides, it doesn't wane. Then one is a bodhisattva.
Andushine Samdaya Kungore says to Sumore. Design that Donda Nyingpo Denga Samdaya de Karesha is Yanke Konima Dorju in the Bene. That's Dambo Kobi Dunga Nimi Tiki Pa, Tuskanga Tiki Pa Samda, Chesada, the Nikanga de la Rangibo May Machine, Semja Tamje, Targanga Tungdesha, and Chasan Jekanga de Targudu Simpe, Semja Tamje Dunga de Targudu, Semja Tamje Deva Duba Chibar Dunga Miduba Chibare, Chesan Semja Tamje Digi Trupodu, Sembeke, Samdane, Dennis Semja Deva de Denver Show, Sembeke Samda, Gom, Dennis Semja Tamje Dunga, Jawa Show, Sipiko Gom, Dennis Semja Dunga, Jawa, Digi the Demba, Nichi, Semja Lamdinche, Semja Tamje, Yakoya. Jaya Sangis Nikogi, awesome Gom. They didn't that Sangi Gobala, Dadanga, the new middle, that new Suludusan, Sanki Resha, Jesa did and Sangi Gobamba to the Tamidu, she had a Panto Jubala, that Sangi Gobo, Tobu, Dizing a Simja Tamju Sangi Gobo, Tober shoes, Tober Jigin, Tober shoes, and somebody to scare the Chinese in Jabas, do she had some Rimba, do still come at it.
I want to just briefly recap the meditation so that the steps are clear. So first, one again meditates on suffering. Even though, at this point, one has meditated a lot on suffering. This is our motivation. We regenerate, we meditate on the sufferings of samsara, how suffering pervades samsara. And yesterday, we spoke about the various ways to meditate on suffering. And we do so generating definite emergence, this determination to gain freedom from cyclic existence. That's the second. That's the result of meditating on the sufferings of samsara. We then bridge from our own determination to gain freedom from suffering. We bridge to the recognition that all other beings also want to be freed of suffering. Every single human being, animal, unseen being, anywhere in these three realms of samsara, they yearn to be free of suffering and abide in lasting happiness. Then we develop a sense of closeness towards all others, a closeness, a tenderness towards them. And we do so by reflecting on our our deep interdependency with them, that we are involved in a web of close interdependency. Using that then to generate love and compassion. With love being, may others abide in happiness. May they abide in a state where they never suffer again. May they abide only in happiness and therefore cultivate the causes for this. The companion mind there is that of compassion. May beings gain freedom from all forms of suffering. These two go together, these two minds of love and compassion. May all beings be free of suffering and abide in lasting happiness. This is love and compassion. May they accumulate the causes that lead to lasting happiness, eliminate causes that would otherwise lead to suffering. Then one keeps meditating on love and compassion to the point where one takes responsibility for the welfare of others, where one generates wholehearted resolve. And then one will have their interest, the interest of others, as one's primary motivation. And recognizing then, the final step thus far, recognizing then, but to actually be able to guide beings to attain liberation from suffering, I have to become a Buddha. And this is where one generates bodhicitta. I want to tie what I presented here to what we looked at this morning. So this morning we spoke about how we are governed by our own, achieving our own self-interest. We carry this strong habituation from lifetimes, and our society encourages us, got to look after number one, got to take care of yourself and those that are part of the I and those that are part of your mind, them first and foremost. And if the others things go well, that's fine, but it's not really my problem. This is my concern here and here alone. So this morning we spoke about coming to recognize the limitations and in fact the deep fault of that approach, how it's actually contrary to one's own best interests. And now in the presentation on love and compassion that leads to the generation of wholehearted resolve, holding others as dear and becoming a bodhisattva. If one imagines what it would be like to be such a being, moving through the world, dominated by bodhicitta, striving to be of benefit to others, such a being will have a mind filled with happiness. Such a being will not suffer, reaching out to others, helping others, being of benefit to others will bring them the greatest of joy. So through fulfilling the needs of others, the bodhisattva fulfills their own needs. They are not suffering, helping for others, overcoming what would otherwise have been hardships in order to help others, brings great happiness to them. So they are even on a temporary level achieving their own happiness, and they are progressing towards Buddhahood, the attainment of perfect happiness. So in this way, we come to see how abandoning the self-cherishing attitude and being dominated by, living by the other cherishing attitude, we actually achieve our own benefits.
rangni dewo kuda ngarang yago ngarang kanga sego kunlong di thone jubaje yungor bada danga di yu ngai dunga chago simbege deni kunlong thone ane subolya ngazu chedenje luise ala so bada deni re khala juya da dulo da deni tabshinar ane menche chi ala so bada kanga se kunlong di thone yungor bada de na kunlong di memba che 랑치진 삼은 파도르시 현치진 삼 현디기도 현이 동화 세우도 현기 강아 세우도 현이 동화 내시기 다 현이 강아 내시기 내세발라 나 내버치는 게 그전에 강아 가는 세도 그랬어 지금 한 내버고 나수부 타만 보고 있어 제가 현기 판도 주발라 나수부 대상 수부 타다 말한 게다 소위 튕겨 토네 지강아 맞춰봐 차사 되는지 고도 왔어 제가 등이 현이 된다려야 현이 판도 주야 내 류디 현이 된다를 배지단 있어 제가 이상에 내디 류디 탕보제다 근데 지금 최대 야고 내나서 매가 고도 되는게 토네는 현의 판도 주베치도 류리야 최대인지야 하는 거죠 칼라다 은도로다 되는게 차사 왜 그거 당연히 소술이야 체딜이야 답변에 초신 내봐라 그거 칼라다 두로다 최대 면주 뭐 그거로 디차상가 나 현의 판도 셔봐라 나 수부 대상 고도 나 셈버 기부 고르려고 그래 제사다 나 수부 되고 매봐다 셈벌 흘려 셈을 매봐다 내 또그에다 되네 강아지는 게 샤는 가는 로고 제도 산지 고모 토비 주네 가는 냠는 제도 그래 제사 니 냠는 제봐라 말아야 수부 당부 대기 내나서 매봐 안지 튕게되게 차상 상와지고 뒤에상에 현이 셈징 현심제 판도 주야 그리고 뒤에상에 셈자는 상요고 토고 니 돈달라 이 안지 소식이 튕게다 최대제야다 내나서 매봐 소소 진시야데 진시기에 셈비 현득의 삼다 주에는 제자나 칼라 랑든 삼다에나 칼라사야나 두로라 지바디 현의 삼다나 랑기 튕게 차사라도 집어두고 봐 이제 꿀롱을 돈에 차로라 이니 꿀롱을 돈에 삼다데 네 랑든레 니 돈에 현의 삼다나 랑기 네 최대다 내나서 라소바다 내니 튕겨도데 현의 미네베드네 야가주도 두어래 야가주도 두어래 단 랑든 삼단 주요도 다 디마지 주로마지도 현의 여백이다 강아리 얘네 현의게 주녀백이데 동아마 강아마 지거로 제사디 랑든 주비야 랑게 된다 주발라 랑든 삼단지 주고 말에 현의 삼단지베는 랑게 된 주에디 샬 주용을 해셔
So hopefully everyone here, in accordance with your ability, you take care of your health. And we know from what we've learned through society that to take care of our health, to have a long and healthy life, we need to eat well, we need to exercise appropriately, take medicine when we're sick, wear appropriate clothing, live in some shelter and so forth. So hopefully everyone is doing their best to look after their health. But the motivation for doing so would be one, I don't want to be sick. I don't want to have a life with a lot of pain and discomfort. I want to have a longer life and a life with as much health as possible. So therefore, I will look after my health through eating in moderation, eating well, exercising sufficiently, and taking medicine when I'm ill. So this is about the motivation to do so is looking after myself. And this is the normal motivation in our world. But here we're talking about developing the opposite motivation. So when someone has developed the other cherishing mind, when they're holding others as dear, it will be perhaps even clearer to them, I have to take care of my health. Because if I'm incapacitated by poor health, how can I be of benefit to others? So I have to eat in moderation, eat healthily, exercise sufficiently, take medication when I'm ill and so forth. Because I need to be of benefit to others. And I cannot do so if I don't look after my health. Likewise, to earn a living. If one has developed the other cherishing mind, one still has these material needs. Needs to eat nutritiously, pay the rent, look after one's position, as one's health, as well as perhaps gain further skills and education. For this, one needs money, so one goes to work. But one will be going to work, doing one's job well, in order to look after one's health, in order to benefit others. One will be going to work in order to earn a living, so that one's education can grow, so that one can help others ever more. So what we see here is that someone who's developed the other cherishing mind, they go through life externally not looking very different from others. And if for that person who in this particular life abandons the self-cherishing mind and develops the other cherishing mind, their activities will largely look kind of the same from before. But this person's inner experience is radically transformed. Their very motivation behind whatever they do is radically transformed. They'll go to work, they'll cook their food, they'll go to the shops, just like before. But their motivation for doing so will be radically transformed. So therefore, so that's the one key, when the mind changes like this. On one level, things look the same, but the motivation is completely different. The further point to make is to challenge any misconception that if one is placing the needs of others first, one oneself goes without. From what I've just described, a person goes to work, they look after their health, they live somewhere comfortable. They are not going without. They are doing all these things genuinely to be of benefit to others. They know they need to look after themselves to a certain degree to be of benefit to others. So they are not living in poverty, in poor health, not taking care of themselves. Not at all. In order to be of benefit of others, they take care of themselves.
제자들 소수기 튕겨줘야지 샹라 미니베 토네 튕겨주고 거와 소수기 샹라 미니베 토네 튕겨줘 되니게 소소라는 되니 야고 제되게 소소 강아튼 미셔다 어디고 강아지 홀로로고 제고도 그 밑에는 미야고요 진짜 로고 제라 요로다 제가 그 랑슈기 리용 거고 샹도 있지네 제자랑게 튕긴다就是제가 미셔다나 모신 마셔마 되니게 쭉 거도 미디 야고 빼 야고를 다시 땡하다 차고로 rang chasing is some not hal so sweet tonga rag some lega leben tonga ra khagurwa jin tonga mara mi gyunji jin den khorlang lo hangal nge ji ro chin ngal ya tonga tang min khorona de ram ba ji ba ni khorona de shen da le ya ani ji ge ne ba chi de den shen da ji khorona ji za de rang chasing is some le thone rang ge den ju ye de ya ni pe ma se ka le khabu ya bu ju tu ko ma re de ge si chun chun ju ne shen ya 채와도 니베토네 조야게 냥아치 모용 거래 진짜 현지적인 삼다 고주에도 랑든 디기파 랑게 된다 디기파 랑슈기 주용 그래서 지산데 랑든 주에 디게 샬라 미니베토네 주고 그래서 지산 현 차상에 뛰어가야 돼 현 차상에 랑리아 누구십지에 뛰어가야 돼 차고 그래서 지산데 현지적인 현 팬비스에 꿀렁 쳐버나 랑든 디게 샬루 주고 그래서 다음에 랑든 게 나랑 고지 랑지진 고고 말해 랑지진 매다 시할래 판바 선바 바시 그토네 제제어도 오늘 랑게 차사디 아들 시할로 주고 그래서 현진 做뭐수 현진 집에 랑게 된데 시할로 주고 그래서 배능아도 별에 디셔오래 배능아도 돈도 답도 먼저 가르는 미시 되어서 제부들 미시 되고 얼마도 미지在罗马当地界个到了地里米些得个嘛是吧因为我就这边的米些到有的过这边的米到有的因为在当中罗马的些让属于过用过的没什么的用过的现在地里上我们别地那些现在的三大都这两个这三大这边呢因为让给对的让属于主不认识
Let's take an illustration of someone who, having heard teachings like this, makes great effort for an extensive period, and in this life, they generate the other cherishing mind. So they've cultivated love and compassion, and they hold others as dear. And as you've just heard, such a person is not now going to stop engaging in society. They're not going to live in poverty somewhere, but they'll continue to work, to earn a living, to look after their body. So let's say this person has been working at the same company for some years, and in this period, they've developed the other cherishing mind. So now they'll still be going to work, still doing whatever that work is, like before, but their motivation behind every action will be radically transformed. They will be going to work in order to be of direct benefit to those that are in their place of work, and through these people to be of indirect benefit to their circle of family and friends. Likewise, they'll be going to work to earn a living to look after themselves, as described earlier. So they're performing of their job, which may be nothing praiseworthy, just an ordinary job, is being done with a very different motivation and therefore leads to a very different result. And if before, as an ordinary person dominated by achieving their own self-interest, let's say a colleague was having some problems in completing a project, and you have the capacity to help them, well, you may have kept quiet, wanting them to fail, so that you, by comparison, will look better. Or you may have helped them, but made sure that your boss found out that their success was really due to you. This is the normal way of the world. This is the self-cherishing attitude, following one's own best interests. But now, faced with that situation, you'll readily help the other person. You won't need to be asked. You certainly will not seek any recognition. And if recognition comes, you'll refuse it and put it to the other person. In this way, you'll readily help others. You'll embrace every opportunity to help others. And you'll feel like, I've won, even though the other person gets the praise, because you have helped them. In this way, one is going through life to others, looking very much the same. But over time, they come to recognize you as being a genuinely nice person, a good person, someone they can trust, they can rely on, someone they can turn to for help and support. They're not going to have any clue whether you're a bodhisattva or not. They'll have no idea of that. But you'll be someone they can trust, someone they can rely on. And you, as an advanced practitioner, will be taking great pleasure in helping others, in helping them overcome their problems. Even though it's mundane like this will bring great joy to you and benefit to you. And again, to stay with examples from the garden, when you're caring for your garden, you're deciding what you're going to plant, you'll make your choice probably based on you'd like flowers that you find very pretty, so you plant those plants, and later you look forward to enjoying the blooming flowers. But as the plant grows, the stalk will come, the leaves will grow. This wasn't your motivation. You didn't particularly want the leaves, but they come anyway. You're really interested in the flower. And this is similar to someone who's developed the other cherishing mind. Their focus is on benefiting others. That is the flower that they are after. But the leaves, they come naturally. And this is the benefit that the practitioner receives regardless.
rangi digi tuko kanga se tu mare sembe samlo tang ko mare cheza dini sa rang chi sing samlo tang khong ma je ne rangi de da de ge chen bu tu ye de da shen chi sing sembe thone tu ko re se da de be chen ro dini re cheza da shen chi sing thone sam da je man de tün gin zu bei ne ye de zhang bu zhang xia xian le ma ne ba de bian ju zu bei ne xian le ma ne ba zhang bu zhang xia thone tu ko re da rang xian di me ba je rang chi sing thone sam da bei ne tün gin zu ye de le ya 지게 튕기를 하나 샬레 뉘어봐도 고걸 따야다 소수기 협상가 제라야 된다야 고걸 따투야다 되네 가르치나 샬레 뉘어봐도 용시 버려 제산되네 자다 나중에다 현지적인 돈에 삼다베나 라도에 죽두고래 현대 자신부 두고 저 현지 잠니지 삼로디 디드나 샬레 판파 자신부 죽두고래 라니 심전 탐주 상이 고관된 델레드는 죽두고래 샬레 판파디게 자신부 딜레드는 죽두고래 델레 죽여도 rangi dunda lui chöden tungi yoyada an dejuge lui desajade shala deni thone juktugo chasada je rangji sing samlo goyo ma shenje ba zime sam di thone chasa juktuye de yobares dine enza daodun isna chanshin mense de daodun le mashin ba de pa ba ka je jamni je ni je komba ina janjisim gile gege janjisim gile gebare dela dene ne yang zo sanju ko ba top ture said an do shine Nyingpo de da dusung gore, jiza dire, adi denere.
To summarize what we've looked at today, it's spoken quite a bit about the faults of cherishing oneself, of pursuing one's own self-interest. So I hope the faults of following one's own self-interest and the benefits of striving to benefit others are clear, because this requires extensive reflection, because one not only needs to overcome one's own habituation, but also to the views imposed on us by society. And the more one reflects on the faults of self-cherishing and the benefits of other cherishing, it will lead to one perhaps needing to make some changes in one's life. Look at the field that one works in, one's place of employment, the kind of friends one has, and see whether these are conducive to the cultivation of the other cherishing mind or not. And hopefully, most workplaces, one can work with an honest attitude, an attitude that doesn't take advantage of others, of co-workers, or needing to deceive customers. And as long as one is in an environment where one can work with honesty and with integrity, then one can cultivate these qualities as well as express them in a beneficial way, in a wholesome way, in society in this way. So this needs quite some reflection, because a lot of things that we've learned from society needs to be challenged. This attitude of, if I don't look after myself, who's going to look after me? If I don't stand up for myself with anger and the strength that comes with anger, others will take advantage of me. So these and other attitudes that we learn from society actually prevent our spiritual development, prevent us from becoming the people that we actually long to be. So this takes some reflection, and then those initial steps of trying to make those changes in how we interact with others, how we live in society. But by doing so, hopefully from this presentation, you understand that actually becoming someone who genuinely serves others, who places the needs of others first and foremost, I will benefit as well. The Bodhisattvas, the Buddhas, they aren't struggling. They aren't deeply unhappy, living lives of great hardship. Rather, through serving others, they are nourished, and they gain great benefit too. So through reflecting well like this, one has the sufficient confidence to try and overcome this deep-seated striving for our own self-interest, and to cultivate love and compassion with the wish to actually generate bodhicitta and become a Buddha for the sake of others.
다 더르디나다 안저 디링게 삼다디 제자 심제 코람 감도 고유 동안 삼다 딜렛 네 심제 지게 타고도 제자 심제 탐제 고유 동안 딜렛 타고도 선배 삼다제 네 심제 대화 템버쇼 호스베 삼르다 네 심제 동안다 자워쇼 스피게 삼르다 다양한 얘네기 네 심제 동안다 자와다 되기 때문에 이 지기 심제 탐제 감도 고유 동안을 줘야 상계설 양의 꾸기 심별 하삼게 난 되니게 녜sem제 탐지 동화를 줘야 상계에서 고야리야 탑초도 주버다 상계고 말이야 상계고 마도 탑미도 제장에 셈제 탐지기도 상계고 뭐 도버쇼 셈비게 삼로디 땅만주 두시 디 삼로디 양주기 데 두시게 디라바냐 아주 소수고 뒤다 갑을 준비도하는 되니게 삼로시 나한테 나한테 아주 되니게 무티지 다한테 뱀마시베 자치모로 되니게 지제마도 베네 이미지리야 되는 아주 차직 되는 게 삼로시 다투베네 삼로디 다된 판윤报도메 봤어요. 개와报도메 봤어요. 디르와다 지가르스네 대시 셈딜을 하바디 요마르세 자치 무시우레 센다 도다 유다 도다 된제 몽본다 소와인자 아주 되는 게 삼로시 다투베네 되네 고미야딩 아주 기다 감지 고미야라네 뱀마스베 자치무 개와 침사고레 되네 게 딜레 지 야네야도 살까지 망아 뒤 균이 가지 중하고 고미야라바네 딜레양 주게다 여기 야 설기에 샤샤고 개와체서 지자 상이고 토야리야 먼저 타니에 주고 그래 언도시네 한테 딜링이 줘야 돼 도시에다 되느냐 딜하마데 상이 봐 주셔 봐체
It should be quite clear how today's presentation builds on yesterday's, and hopefully it's also clear to you how yesterday's built on the day before's. So I encourage you to engage in these meditations, in particular to the point of bodhicitta that we presented today. So when you think about suffering, or whenever you experience suffering and you immediately have this visceral response of, I don't want to suffer, use that as the basis to think about liberation, freedom from suffering, and use that then as a link to remind yourself, no one wants to suffer. And then use that as the link to may all beings abide in lasting happiness. May all beings gain freedom from suffering. And that way of thinking one can do throughout the day as one goes through one's various events. When one encounters a problem, use it as a spur to lead one to develop, or at least to remind oneself of love and compassion. Then if you can sit quietly and do the meditation, taking it further, developing the wholehearted resolve and the determination to become a Buddha in order to lead all beings to a state freed of suffering. If you can do that every day, this is fantastic. There's no mind more precious than that of bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is praised in the sutras. It's praised throughout the tantras, and it's praised in the commentaries to the sutras and tantras by the great masters of India and Tibet. There is no mind more precious than bodhicitta. So if you can do this meditation, even if it's just brief, every day, like this, one is building slowly habituation. And if you can remind yourself of it in the way I've now briefly mentioned throughout the day, that habituation will come about so much more quickly. In this way, one transforms this life from just being another ordinary, unremarkable life into a life of great meaning. Then thank you. Then we can conclude there for this afternoon. Thank you.